So what if I told you there was one soccer player so great, he just didn't win trophies? He changed the way the world looked at the game. A boy from Brazil who grew up poor. A boy who sometimes didn't even have a real soccer ball. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Coffee, Secrets, and Transformation. I'm your host, Don Ray. A boy who practiced with anything kind of like rolled up. It could have been a sock, paper, anything he could kick. And somehow, the same boy became the only player in history to win 3 FIFA World Cups. His name is Pelé. To Brazil, he was more than an athlete. He was just an icon, I would say. To soccer fans, he was more than a superstar. He became the king of football. But before the fame, before the World Cup, before the stadiums were full of people and chanting his name, Pelé, he was just a young kid with a dream. And his story began in a small town in Brazil, Edison Arantes do Sacramento, on October 23, 1940. In Brazil, his family did not have much money. His father, known as Don Dinho, had also been a soccer player, but injuries kind of kept him from becoming a major star. So Pelé grew up seeing struggles. There were no expensive cleats, no private trainers, no fancy soccer clubs. Sometimes there wasn't even a real ball. So Pelé and his friends made their own, ball made of socks, and they stuffed it with paper and so forth. Even used fruit. Sometimes they kicked whatever they could find, a can, anything. But that poverty did not stop him. In fact, it helped shape him. Because when he learned to control a bad ball on a rough street, you develop a touch that cannot be taught in a classroom. So Pelé, he was barefooted. He played in dirt. He played with hunger. Not just hungry for food, but hungry to become something great. And even as a child, people couldn't see something different in him. He had balance. He had speed. He had creativity. And most importantly, he had joy. When Pelé played soccer, it looked like he was born with it. So by the time Pelé was a teenager, his talent was impossible to ignore. At the age of 15, he signed with Santos FC, one of the biggest clubs in Brazil. Most 15-year-olds are still trying to figure out what they want to do or who they are, but Pelé was already playing against grown men, and he wasn't just surviving, he was dominating. He scored goals with both feet. He could dribble past defenders. He could jump high and score headers. He could pass, create, and finish. He played with confidence, but also with humility. Then, at the age of 16 years old, Pelé was called up to play for the Brazil national team. That was almost unbelievable. A teenager representing Brazil, but Brazil was about to discover that this young boy was not normal. He was special, and soon entire world would find out. In 1958, the FIFA World Cup been held in Sweden. Brazil had never won the World Cup before, so the country had talented players, but they were still carrying pain from the past disappointment. So Pelé, only being at the age of 17, at first he was injured and did not play in the opening matches, but once he stepped into the field, everything changed. In the qualifying finals against Wales, Pelé scored the only goal in the game. That goal sent Brazil to the semifinals. Then came the match against France. So Pelé scored a hat trick, 3 goals in one game. On the biggest stage in soccer, the 19-year-old kid was destroying world-class defeaters. Then came the final. Brazil faced Sweden, the hostile country. The pressure was enormous. The stadium was packed. The world watched, and Pelé only gave them magic. He scored 2 goals in the final. One of them became legendary. He kicked the ball over the defender, controlled it, and finished it with confidence. Brazil won 5-2, and for the first time ever, Brazil became FIFA's World Cup champions. And Pelé was only 17 years old, remember this. He became a global superstar. After the final whistle, he cried on the field. His teammates lifted him up, but this was the only beginning. After becoming the youngest World Cup champion in history, the world expected Pelé to dominate the next tournament. 4 years later, in 1962, the FIFA World Cup was held in Chile. Brazil entered the tournament as the defender champions, and all eyes were once again on Pelé. He started the tournament brilliant. In Brazil's second match, Pelé scored an incredible goal against Mexico, waving past several defeaters before calmly finishing into the net. It was reminded that he wasn't just looking for his reputation, he was getting even better. But then disaster struck. During Brazil's next match, Pelé suffered a serious muscle injury. So actually, in those days, substitutes were kind of like, they're not very common. They're very hard to have a substitute in order for them to be replaced. So what's up happening is that his World Cup was effectively over. For an athlete, it would be like heartbreaking. So Pelé had a dream. He would lead Brazil into another title, but now he could only watch from the sidelines. Unfortunately, for another superstar stepped in forward. His name was Garrincha. With Garrincha producing one of the greatest World Cup performances ever. Brazil continued to win the match after match. When Brazil defeated Czechoslovakia 3-1 in the final, Pelé celebrated with his teammates, even though injuries kept him from finishing the tournament. He finally officially became a 2-minute FIFA World Cup champion. Every few players even win one, but Pelé already won 2 before the age of 22. That's unheard of. In 1966, FIFA's World Cup in England was supposed to be with Pelé's greatest tournament. Yet, instead, it became one of the most painful experiences in his career. Opposing defenders knew they couldn't stop Pelé. They couldn't stop him, that's for sure, with his skills alone. So many of them resort to consistency fouling, I would say. He was kicked, he was pushed, he was dragged, he was pulled down, hit again and again. In Brazil, opening match against Bulgaria, Pelé scored a beautiful free kick. Despite taking repeated hard tackles, then he was injured. He missed the next game, returning to Brazil's final group match against Portugal. He was fouled, relentless. Once again, one brutal tackle after another left him barely able to run. So Brazil was eliminated in the group stage, one of the biggest disappointments in the country's soccer history. So Pelé was, I would say, he was devastated. He even told reporters he was considering never playing again in the World Cup again. Many fans feared that he had seen the last of the king. But champions don't stay down forever. 4 years later, Pelé returned for one final World Cup. The tournament was held in Mexico. Now, Pelé wasn't just Brazil's biggest star. He became the face of soccer. Brazil's 1970 squad is still considered by many experts to be one of the greatest teams ever assembled, with stars like Jairzinho, Tostão, Revellino, and Carlos Alberto Torres. Alongside with Pelé, the team played beautifully, attacking soccer that thrilled the world. Pelé scored against Czechoslovakia, am I saying that right, in the opening match and nearly scored one of the greatest goals ever seen. He spotted the goalkeeper off his line and launched a shot from the midfield that Birdie missed. Although the tournament, Pelé controlled the tempo, creating scoring chances and inspiring everybody around him. Then came the final against Italy. It was one of the biggest matches in world history. Pelé opened the scoring with a towering header that gave Brazil an early lead. Later, he delivered one of the greatest assists ever seen, calmly rolling the ball into the path of Carlos Alberto Torres, who blasted into the net to complete Brazil's unforgivable 4-1 victory. As the final whistle blowed, his story has been made. Pelé has won his third FIFA World Cup. No player before him has ever accomplished that, and no one. And more than 50 years later, no player has matched that achievement. The boy who kicked the ball made of socks had become immortal in the world of soccer. And that's your show. Thank you for watching another episode of Coffee, Secrets, and Transformation. I'm your host, Don Ray. Don Ray!